The bride had only one working lung. A widowed doctor never left her side. The stethoscope was cold. That's what I remember, not the sound through it, not what I heard, but the temperature of the bell when I pressed it to her chest. February in a place called Harlan's Crossing, and my hands had not been warm since October. The cold crept into everything. Into the steel, into the wood of the examining table she sat on, into me. I'd stopped noticing my own cold by then. Hadn't noticed much of anything for about a year and a half. She was 23 years old, and supposed to be married in 11 days. I set the stethoscope against her back, and she didn't flinch the way most did. Just sat there straight, hands folded in her lap, staring at the wall opposite. Her name was Cora Aldridge, Cora Flint then, before the wedding, and she'd come in on the stage from Pueblo with her fiancé, a cattle buyer named Aldridge who was paying to have the Harlan's Crossing church rebuilt and didn't much mind that everyone knew he was paying for it. She had this way of being still that I noticed before I noticed anything else. Not a scared still, a chosen still. Like she decided what kind of person she was going to be in a room, and she was being it. I listened to her lungs. The right one clear enough, tired but clear. The left one sounded like somebody dragging a wet boot through gravel. I pulled the stethoscope out of my ears and looked at the wall same as she was doing. There's a particular moment in this work, the moment after you've heard something and before you've said anything, that I've never gotten used to. You carry what the body told you alone for a few seconds. You know, and they don't, and there's nothing in the world quite like that loneliness. How long has it been like that? I said, not a question, flat. She didn't ask me what I meant. Since I was 19, she said. What happened when you were 19? Fever bad one came back 3 times. The last time the left one just, she paused, picked at the hem of her sleeve. It never came back all the way. I walked to the window. Outside, the main street of Harlan's Crossing looked the way it always looked, half finished, half abandoned. A few horses at the rail in front of the hotel, one man crossing in no particular hurry. I'd operated on a man out there in the street once when I first arrived. Laid him out on a door they'd taken off the saloon. That was 4 years ago, when things still reached me that way. When the strange and urgent parts of this work still broke through to wherever I was. Your fiancé know? I asked. He knows I'm not entirely well. She said it so particularly, entirely, like she'd chosen the word ahead of time and stuck to it. That's not a fair answer to what I asked. She looked at me then for the first time, turned her whole face to look at me. Brown eyes very steady. A kind of measuring in them. He knows what I've told him, she said. I pulled my coat off the hook and put it on. I did this when I didn't know what to do with my hands. My wife had told me that once. You put your coat on when you're thinking about something hard. I hadn't realized it until she said it, and I haven't been able to stop doing it since. You have one functioning lung, Miss Flint, I said. The other one is I didn't finish. High altitude won't help you, cold won't help you, hard work won't help you, and this is a hard work country. I know that. Then what are you asking me for? She looked at me a long time. I haven't asked you for anything yet, Dr. Aldis. My name. She'd learned my name before she came in, which meant she'd asked someone, which meant she'd already decided something before she walked through the door, and this visit was something else, something I didn't know the name of yet. Are you asking me to clear you? I said. For the wedding, to tell your fiancé you're fit. I am fit, she said. I function fine. Under certain conditions. Under the conditions I intend to live under. I didn't say anything for a moment. What conditions are those? Reasonable ones, she said. I'm not planning to ride cattle drives. I'm not planning to haul wood or work a field. Robert is a buyer. He has a house in Denver. I've seen it. It's warm. I'll manage fine. Miss Flint. What I am asking, she said, and the way she said asking with a firmness in it, a little impatience. What I'm asking is whether you are the kind of man who lies to people to protect them, or whether you are the kind who tells them the truth and then stands with them while they figure out what to do about it. I hadn't been asked something like that in a while. I stood there with my coat on and tried to remember the last time someone had asked me something that wasn't about a wound or a fever or whether a bone was set right. I'd like to think the second kind, I said. She nodded, went back to looking at the wall. Then I'm asking you to examine me honestly, tell me honestly what you find, and keep it between us until I decide what to do with it. That's a somewhat unusual request. I'm a somewhat unusual patient. I'd figure out how unusual over the next 11 days. My wife's name was Helen. She's been gone 2 years as of last November. Fever same as what got Cora's lung, but Helen's went the other way. 3 weeks and then she was gone, and the remarkable part, the part that's strange even now to think about, is how ordinary those 3 weeks looked on the outside. I came home. I went to my office. I examined people and told them what was wrong and wrote things in my ledger. I ate supper. I slept, or something that passed for it. The town of Harlan's Crossing kept waking up in the morning and going to bed at night, and I kept moving through it the way a stick moves in a current, not going anywhere, just being moved. I was 37 years old when Helen died. She was 34. We'd been in Harlan's Crossing 4 years by then, and she'd made it something she said she could see herself growing old in, which was a thing I didn't think possible when we first arrived. She was good at that, finding what was worth finding in a place. Finding it and naming it for me so I could see it too. After she was gone, I couldn't find it myself. Whatever she'd been doing, some calibration she made without knowing she was making it, left with her. I don't say this to earn anyone's sympathy. I'm only telling you because Cora Aldridge, Cora Flint, not yet married, walked into my office 11 days before her wedding, and the first thing she said to me, before I even looked at her chest, before I even had her sit down, was, "You're the doctor who lost his wife." Not asterisk, "I'm sorry for your loss," not "I heard about your wife," just "the doctor who lost his wife," like she was confirming she had the right address. "Yes," I said. "Good," she said. "I wanted the right doctor." I think about that a lot even now, what she meant by asterisk right. I thought she meant experienced, skilled, specific. Later I understood she meant something else entirely. I examined her 4 times over the next week. The first time was that cold February afternoon. The second time was 2 days later, when she came back claiming she'd had a hard night and wanted to be sure. The third time was 4 days after that. She came in the morning, before Aldridge was up, wearing a heavy coat over her nightgown and boots that weren't laced properly. The fourth time she just came and sat in my office and didn't say anything about being examined at all. Between visits, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in quite a while, which was thinking about another person. Not in the distant professional way, not running through symptoms or treatments in my head, but actual thinking. What she'd said, the particular way she'd said it, whether she was sleeping, whether the cold was getting into her chest the way I told her it could. On the third visit, I listened to her left lung for a long time, longer than was strictly necessary. She sat still the way she always did, back straight, hands in her lap. "It's worse when I'm cold," she said. "I know. Denver is warmer." Modestly. A pause, she was looking at the wall. "He's a good man," she said, not defending Aldridge exactly, more like considering a fact out loud. "I'm sure he is," I said. "You haven't met him." "No. He was kind to me on the stage," she said. "He held my hand when we hit rough ground. He didn't do it in a," she thought about how to say it, "in a proprietary way, just easy, like he thought I might want a hand to hold." I pulled the stethoscope away. "Have you told him yet?" She didn't answer, which was an answer. I sat down in my chair across from her. It was maybe 10 in the morning. Light coming in at an angle the way February light does, pale and working hard for not much warmth. I had my hands around a cup of coffee that had gone cold. I noticed her look at the cup and then look away. "I'll make another," I said. "You don't have to." I got up and made another and brought her one and sat back down, and for a while we just sat there in a doctor's office in Harlan's Crossing, Colorado, drinking bad coffee in the cold morning. And I don't know exactly when I stopped thinking of her as a patient, but it was somewhere around then. "My mother had it," she said. "The lung thing, left side, same as me. She lived to 61. "That's possible," I said. "You're not going to say, of course you will too, or you have every reason to expect a long life." "No." "Good." She held her coffee cup in both hands. Small hands, I'd noticed that examining her, small and capable. "I've been lied to very kindly all my life, by people who were trying to be good to me, my father, the first doctor I saw, my aunt who raised me after my mother died." She paused. "I'm so tired of being lied to kindly. It sounds awful to say, because they meant well." "It doesn't sound awful," I said. She looked at me, direct the way she had the first time, that measuring look. "What was her name?" she said. "Your wife." The directness of it landed in my chest. People in Harlan's Crossing talked around Helen. talked around her and around me as if both were raw places they didn't want to press. Here was this woman, 11 days from her own wedding, asking me flat. "Helen," I said. "What was she like?" I stopped. I hadn't tried to say it out loud in a long time. She was the kind of person who made you feel like the room was better with you in it. Not flattery, she had that gift. She made you feel like you were worth being with. Cora was quiet for a moment. Then she was right. I looked up. "About you," she said. She was right. I didn't say anything. I didn't have anything to say. I wrapped both hands around my coffee cup and looked at the floor and felt something in my chest that I hadn't felt in quite a long time. The beginning of something, small and uncertain, and a little painful the way beginnings are. She told Aldridge on the 7th day. I wasn't there. I heard about it from the woman who ran the hotel, who'd been 2 rooms down and heard it through the wall, not everything, but enough. Aldridge was not unkind. He was quiet for a long time, and then he spoke quietly, and then he left the room and went downstairs. Cora didn't come down for supper. She came to my office at 8 the next morning. She sat down in the chair across from my desk, not the examining table, the chair, and I could see by the set of her face what had happened. Not destroyed. Not undone. Just very still the way she was always still, except this was a different kind. The kind you choose when things have come loose and you need something to hold on to. "He's gone," she said. I waited. He left on the early stage, left a letter. She had it in her hand, didn't offer it, just held it. He said he was sorry, that I should have told him sooner, that he couldn't. She stopped, smoothed the letter against her knee. He couldn't promise to be the kind of man this required. "I'm sorry," I said. She nodded. She was looking at her hands. "I expected it," she said. "That's the strange part. I expected it, and it still arrives, doesn't it, even when you expect it?" "Yes." She looked up. "I have enough money to get back to Pueblo. My aunt is there." A pause. "She'll be sorry for me. She'll be very kind, and she'll be sorry for me, and I'll spend the next 20 years being sorry for myself in her house." "Is that what you want?" "No," she said, without hesitating. "That is not what I want." "What do you want?" She looked at me for a long time. Long enough that I became aware of the sounds outside, someone's horse, a cart wheel, a door slamming against the February wind. "I want to stay," she said. I didn't speak. She stopped, corrected. "I'm not saying I mean I want to stay in this town. I have the money from what Aldridge gave back. Not a great deal, but enough for a few months. I want to find a way to be useful. I can read, I can write, I can teach. I can keep books. I just need," she paused. "I need someone to tell me honestly whether this is a reasonable idea or whether I'm being foolish." I looked at her hands, which were very still in her lap, at the letter she was still holding, edges soft already from being folded and refolded. "It's a reasonable idea," I said. Something in her face shifted, small, barely visible, but there. "You'll need somewhere warm," I said, "preferably with a stove that drafts properly. The one at the hotel doesn't." "I know. You can't go above 8,000 feet. The school at Miller Creek is at 8,200, so that's out." "All right. You should come in once a week," I said, "until we know how you're doing through the rest of winter." She nodded. "Then once a week." "Yes. That's quite often," she said, and there was the smallest thing in it, not a smile exactly, not yet, but something that might have been the beginning of one. "It is," I said. She found a room with a widow named Pricewater on the south side of town, south-facing, good stove, window that sealed properly. She started teaching reading to the miners' children 3 mornings a week in the church, which was warm enough. She kept the books for the hardware merchant on Tuesdays. In between she read more than anyone I'd ever met. And occasionally she walked slowly in the middle of the day when it was warmest. And once a week she came to my office and sat in the chair across from my desk and let me listen to her lungs, and then afterwards stayed for coffee that was usually bad and sometimes not. I started making better coffee. That was March. By April, the visits had gotten longer. By the end of April, they weren't about the lungs anymore, not really, or not entirely. They were about whatever we happened to be talking about, which was everything. She had opinions about everything, and they were almost always interesting and sometimes wrong, and she'd listen when I told her she was wrong without getting her back up about it. And then a week later she'd come back and say, I was thinking about what you said about such and I've reconsidered, or sometimes I thought about it more and you're still wrong. It was the most alive I'd felt in I didn't know how long. I stopped trying to count backward. I told her about Helen in pieces. Not all at once, just pieces over weeks, the way you tell things to someone you've gotten used to. The way she used to hum when she was reading. The garden she'd made behind the office that I'd let go to nothing after she died. The sound she made when something amused her, halfway between a laugh and a breath. I hadn't talked about Helen to anyone since the first month after she died, when people asked and I answered, and then they stopped asking and I stopped talking. Cora listened. That was the remarkable thing. She just listened. She didn't say she sounds wonderful or you must miss her terribly, the things people say to close a door they don't know how to walk through. She just listened and sometimes asked a question and sometimes said nothing at all, and it was the first time since Helen died that I felt like I was talking about a real person, and not a memory being held very carefully so it didn't break. In May, she said, you should put the garden back. I looked at her. Behind the office, she said. Helen's garden, you should put it back. I don't know what she had in it, I said. Yes, you do. I looked at the window. Tomatoes, I said. Lavender, some kind of squash she got seeds for from a woman in town, 2 rose bushes along the south wall. Then start with those, she said. I didn't plant it that week or the week after, but I cleared the beds, that was something. In June she coughed blood. Not a great deal. A small amount on her handkerchief, a Tuesday morning. She came straight to me and I examined her and it was the left lung, a small bleed, the kind that happens when a damaged space is worked too hard. I told her she needed 2 weeks of rest, real rest, in the warm room, not teaching, not keeping books, not walking anywhere that wasn't absolutely necessary. She listened to this and said, all right. The lack of argument scared me more than an argument would have. I checked on her every day that week, twice on the first 2 days. Pricewater let me in without comment, which meant either she understood or she decided not to be bothered with having opinions about it. I sat in the chair in Cora's room, a hard chair, a little too small, and she sat propped up in her bed with a book or without a book, and we talked or didn't, depending on how tired she was. On the 4th day, she put the book down and looked at me and said, "You're afraid." "I'm a doctor monitoring a patient with a pulmonary bleed," I said. "Yes," she said, "and you're afraid." I didn't say anything. "Of me dying," she said. I looked at my hands. "You can say it," she said. "It's all right. I've said it to myself plenty of times. The word doesn't have as much power as people think if you just say it plainly." "I know that," I said. "Then say it." I looked up at her. She was watching me with those brown eyes, very steady, and her face had the color of someone who's been sick, not white, but muted, the way color goes down a register when a body is working on something internal. Her hair was loose, which I wasn't used to. She usually pinned it. It made her look younger and also, somehow, more serious. "I'm afraid," I said, "of losing someone else." She held my gaze. "I know," she said, very quietly. "I know you are." I stood up. I didn't know what to do with that, with the plainness of it. I walked to the window and looked out at the June Street, and she let me stand there for a while without talking, which was one of the things I'd come to rely on without knowing I was relying on it. Then she said, "Nate." My given name. She'd never used it before. I turned. "Come here," she said. I walked back to the chair and sat down, and she reached out and put her hand over mine on the arm of the chair. Her hand was warm, warmer than I expected, given how the room was. The warmth surprised me. She left it there. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with the steadiness she always had and held my hand with that warm, small hand, and after a while something in me that had been wound very tight for a very long time began gradually, carefully, to ease. "You haven't disappeared yet," she said eventually. "No," I said. "I've been watching," she said, "waiting for you to disappear on me the way people do. Go away inside yourself where it's safe." A pause. "You haven't." "I've been trying not to," I said. "I know," she squeezed my hand once and let go. "That's the thing, Nate, that's exactly the thing." I didn't say anything else. There wasn't anything to say. I sat in the hard chair beside her bed, and the afternoon light moved across the floor the way afternoon light does in June, slow and gold and long, and she picked her book back up, and I sat there and let myself exist in that room in a way I hadn't let myself exist anywhere in 2 years. She recovered. The 2 weeks became 16 days because on the 12th day she pushed too far, went to the church to check on her students, came back breathing hard and white-faced. And I told her to stop being stupid, and she told me that was rich coming from someone who'd spent a year and a half trying to disappear. And we had the closest thing to a fight I'd ever have with Cora Flint, which meant we raised our voices slightly and then went very quiet, and then I apologized and she apologized, and that was that. By the beginning of July she was teaching again. Not 3 mornings, 2, and not full mornings. Half mornings, the books she still kept because that she could do seated. One afternoon in July, she came by the office not for an appointment, but just to come by. She did that sometimes. She knocked on the open door the way she did and came in and sat in her chair and said, "How's the garden?" "Growing," I said. "Which part first?" "The lavender," I said, "and one of the rose bushes." She nodded satisfied, looked at the window. "Will you show me?" she said. We went out back. It wasn't much. A narrow strip of dirt along the south wall, the lavender coming in ragged but present, one rose bush with 3 blooms on it, red, smaller than they'd been the first year, but there. I'd started on the tomatoes, but they were still small, not yet much to see. She looked at it for a long time, then she looked at me. "Helen would have liked knowing it came back," she said. My throat did something. I looked at the rose bush and nodded her. "Yes," I said. She stood beside me in the July heat. The sun was high and the back of the building cut the worst of it, and there was a smell off the lavender, faint and dry and good. She stood close, not touching, just close. "I think she'd have liked knowing you're still here," she said. I stood in the heat beside her with the smell of lavender and the 3 red roses on the bush, and whatever was in my chest, I didn't try to name it. "I'm working on it," I said. I felt her look at me, the side of my face. Then she reached over and took my hand, the way she'd taken it in the chair in Pricewater's room, easy, without making a thing of it, and we stood there in the garden in the hot July afternoon, and I let myself be in it. I asked her to marry me in August. I did it badly. We were in my office. I was at my desk going over something. She was in her chair reading, and I looked up and looked at her, and the question came out before I'd thought it through. I said, "Cora, I want to marry you." She looked up from her book. I said, I know the circumstances aren't." "Yes," she said. I stopped. "Yes," she said again, still looking at me. "I'll marry you." I haven't really asked properly," I said. "You asked," she said. "It was a little abrupt, but it was you. That's how you ask things, plainly." She looked at me, and there was something in her face, not quite the beginning of a smile, but what lives just under a smile when someone is holding it back for reasons they can't quite say. "I was waiting," she said. "Waiting for you to get there," she said. "I could see you getting there, I just had to wait." I sat back in my chair. I felt slightly undone in the best possible way. I looked at her and she looked at me, and I thought, this woman waited for me to come back to myself. She stayed and she didn't push and she just waited, and here I was. Here I still was. "I have a condition," she said. "All right. You stop trying to disappear." I looked at her. "I know it's not that simple," she said. "I know grief isn't a door you close, but I want you to try. When you feel yourself going away inside, I want you to come tell me, or say nothing and just find me. Just come be somewhere near me." "I can do that," I said. "I know you can," she said. "That's the other reason I said yes." We married in October, in the same church Aldridge had been going to rebuild. It wasn't rebuilt yet. There was a crack in the east wall from the frost heaved the previous winter, and a section of the roof that let in light it shouldn't, but the minister had a stove going, and there were maybe 30 people, and it was warm enough. Cora wore a gray dress she'd had made in town, not white. She said white was for women without opinions. And she stood beside me in the cracked wall church in the October cold, and looked at me the way she'd been looking at me since February. That steady measuring look that somehow also meant I choose you. And I took her hands, which were warm, and I said what the minister told me to say, and meant it in a way I don't have words for even now. After we walked back through town to the office. Just us people went to the Pricewater woman's house for something to eat, and we said we'd be along, but we walked slowly. October in Harlan's Crossing is cold, but it's a clean cold, a dry cold, the kind that comes with blue sky and leaves off the cottonwoods bright as struck matches. She had her hand in my arm and we walked and she said, "Did you sleep last night?" "Some," I said. "I didn't," she said. "I was nervous." "What were you nervous about?" "Nothing specific," she said. "Just that good feeling, the kind that makes you nervous because you don't want to lose it." I knew that feeling. I'd been trying not to feel it precisely because of what she described. The fear inside good things that makes you hold them at arm's length so losing them won't reach as far. I'd been doing that for 2 years. Longer, maybe. She'd been patiently not letting me. "You're not going to lose it," I said. She looked up at me. Blue sky behind her, one cottonwood in the middle of going gold. "I know," she said. "I wasn't afraid you'd lose it. I was afraid I would." "That something would happen to me before," she stopped, started again. "I wanted to get here," she said. "I just wanted to get to this." I stopped walking. She stopped with me. I looked at her face in the October light, the color that had come back into it since June, the steadiness that was just who she was, the eyes that had been measuring me since February and finding, somehow, that I was worth the measure, and I understood what she'd meant the first day. I wanted the right doctor. She'd wanted someone who'd already been broken open, someone who knew what loss weighed and was still standing. She hadn't come to my office to be treated. She'd come to find out if I was worth finding. I put my hand against her face. She held still, the way she always held still, and looked at me. "We got here," I said. She put her hand over mine, held it there. Her eyes stayed on my face, and in them was everything I'd been trying not to want for a year and a half. The being seen, the being chosen, the being known by someone who didn't have to stay and did anyway. "Yes," she said, "we did." Her left lung never got better. It never got worse either, not for a long time. She was careful and I was there, and we figured out together what careful looked like for a person like Cora, which was not a great deal of restriction, because restriction made her irritable in a way that was harder on her system than the altitude. She taught until she was 44, when her knees decided they were done with standing. She kept books longer than that. She read until the end, always reading, always with an opinion about what she was reading, always willing to tell me I was wrong about it, and then think about it for a week and come back and say she'd reconsidered. The garden came back fully by the 3rd year. Tomatoes, lavender, the rose, bushes both, the squash. I found a woman who'd known Helen who remembered what kind it was and got me seeds. Cora never tried to tend it herself. She sat in the doorway sometimes in the evenings and watched me work it. She said once, "You're good at that." "I just water things," I said. "That's all anything needs," she said. I kept doing what she asked me. When I felt myself going away inside, I went and found her. I didn't always say anything. Sometimes I'd just come into whatever room she was in and do something, make coffee, sit down, pick up a book. She'd look up once, just once, and then we'd both be there. That was enough. It turned out that was almost always enough. The church got fixed eventually. They put the crack in the east wall right. The roof stopped letting in light it shouldn't. I was there the Sunday they opened it back up, and I looked at the east wall and thought about October and the cottonwood going gold and Cora's hand on mine in the cold street, and I didn't disappear. I was right there,